I'm sorry, everyone. I was having some technical difficulties. My computer decided to update like 10 minutes ago. And
Hey,
then
you're not the only one, Jason. I just got here myself.
I had issues joining the Zoom and it wanted me to re-register for Zoom. I'm like, okay. What's going
Well, we're
on?
all here now, so. Michael didn't have any problems, so I don't know. I guess we need to all learn from Michael. Right,
Maybe,
Michael?
I'll just come down to your house and knock on the door at our next meeting, and I won't have any trouble.
Blake is getting it all wrong. He just doesn't know the whole story.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We are a couple minutes late, but this is the Solid Waste Management Authority meeting. We are meeting in special session today, June 22nd, 2021. And we will go ahead and call our meeting to order, and I'll ask Kira if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Starkey?
Here.
Commissioner Short?
Here.
Mayor Greeno?
Here.
Chair Inscore?
I'm here.
Commissioner Tompkins?
Here.
All right, if you are able and would be inclined to stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We begin with public comment. Any member of the public can address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter that is either on or off our agenda. We will provide opportunity for you to speak and also make sure that you have opportunity to speak on each agendized item that we'll be acting on this afternoon. Do we have any public comment from those who are attending? If you are, you can hit the raise hand button. We would be happy to take your public comment. Okay, I don't see any, and I'm assuming we didn't receive any public comment for the board via email or any other way. All right, then we're going to close public comment. Before we go into open session, I think you all received email just a few minutes ago. I would like to ask that we place as an urgency item a short discussion on SB 619. We received notification from the League of Cities about this bill in relationship to SB 1383 and its implementations last night. So that was after the agenda. In order to be able to do this, we would need a motion to add this item and a 4/5 vote to be able to do so. I do not anticipate taking specific action, but I would like for us to have a short discussion about this bill today. So
I would so move that we take this up as an urgency item, noting that that we just did receive this information yesterday, and also that the public comment period for this item is tomorrow. So yes, I would definitely make that motion.
I have a motion from Commissioner Short. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Tompkins. Any public comment on adding this item? All right, we'll close public comment. Then Kira, would you please poll the board?
Commissioner Tompkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Short?
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno?
Yes.
Chair Inscore?
Yes, we'll go ahead and place that at the end of our regular agendized items and go ahead and move then into our regular open session items. On consent, we have several things: the minutes from May 18th, allocation and approval of 2 authority bin pulls in support of cleanup efforts at the Crescent City Cemetery, bin pulls of 3 for the fair, payment of claim number 8978 to Outdoor Creations in the amount of $75,3038. claim 8989 to CalPERS Fiscal Services of $140,000 for OPEB obligations, and then a budget transfer for our final payment of 198,326.
Chair and score, we need to, if allowed, we would like to amend and revise.
I'm
the-
sorry, I've got it right here in front of me, Mr. Ward. The budget transfer is $200,730, not the number that I just gave. I apologize. Thank you, Kara, for sending it and trying to keep me straight, but I still screwed it up, so. Are there any items on consent that that we would like to pull for discussion? Commissioner Starkey?
I didn't catch, what is the, it's 237?
200,730.
730. Okay, and then on 1.2, I do have a question. I don't know if you want to pull it or if you want me to
Now,
just
let's-
ask a question.
I actually was gonna pull it anyway, so if myself, if nobody else did. So let's pull item 1.2. We will simply give the correct number as we have for 1.6. Anything else on this that the commissioners would like to discuss?
So, Mr. Underscore, I will move that we approve consent agenda items 1.1, 3, 4, 5, and with 6 with the amended number of 200,730.
30.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a
will make that
motion from Commissioner Short. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Greeno. Any public comment on the consent items that are under consideration? Okay, then Kara, would you please pull the vote?
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey,
Yes,
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes,
Chair and score.
Yes. All right. Item 1.2, Commissioner Starkey, questions or comments?
yeah, so my question was that it's allocated bin pools in support of cleanup efforts at the Crescent City Cemetery. And then 6.1 indicates that is to be done by Mission Possible. I watched the city council meeting and I feel like these might be two separate things. I don't want to take away from anything that Mission Possible is doing. I want to support that 100%. But I don't then want to enter into something and now we don't have those bins available for the Crescent City Cemetery cleanup that the city is going to be organizing later in July.
It's a very good point. I met with both Daphne Lambert and Mr. Weir to make sure that we were all on the same page of this. The city will be organizing the cemetery cleanup. Delaware Mission Possible will be working with the city when the city defines that cleanup to be. And Daphne is completely supportive of that. In my discussion with Mr. Weir this morning, the likelihood is that we may not actually be able to schedule that because of staffing and so forth until August, not probably July. But the city would very much appreciate the allocation of the bin pools when the cemetery project is going to be done. But it's a very good point, and it's one that I made sure that we were all on the same page yesterday for the very reason that you just brought up. So thank you. Any other questions regarding that?
So just clarification, city is not going to plan on doing this until end of July or August? Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I just, with everything else going on, there was a sense that we were trying to push it into a time frame that might not be as successful as, because Delaware Mission Possible had given us this date that they were wanting to consider. And so I just asked, I said, are you set on that date? And Daphne said, no, we're not set on that date. If the city says we want to do it the 1st of August or the second week of August or whatever, our volunteers will be available when the city defines the project. So,
And, Mr. Inscore, do you know if we were able to finalize any of the possible Pelican Bay or Alder Camp crews that were able to assist?
no, and that's part of the reason why Mr. Weir wanted some more time to make sure that we made all the outreaches possible to make this as successful as possible.
Oh, very good.
And I think that's wise on his part.
Very good. Yep. We do want to be successful, and it is a large cleanup effort. So yes, thank you for being in touch. Appreciate your information there.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I'll move to approve 1.2.
And
Okay, I
I'll
have a
second
motion
that.
to approve 1.2 by Commissioner Starkey, seconded by Commissioner Short. Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. And Kira, would you please poll the commission?
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Chair Square.
Yes, very good. All right, we're going to move into our director's report. And Mr. Ward, I'll let you go ahead and head through that. And if there are not any specific questions, then feel free to go ahead and move on into the financials.
Thank you, sir. So in overview, this being July, or July is just around the corner. July through September, we are open an extra day in both Klamath and Gasky. And because this agency is responsible for making sure our facilities are open and running, I always like to give you an update as to what's happening with those. So July and through July, August, and September are heavier months. We have hired additional staff who's now just completed training, and Warren Bailey is working well out of the gate today, but he's going to help us with some of those extra days. We've been through the consent agenda, so no need to review that which you've already approved. On agenda item 6.1, Mission Possible continues to make good progress, and in May, this group collected 12,600 pounds of materials, and that represented an authority expense for the month of $680. So we are continuing to try to make sure that that is under control, and that we are continuing to support the good efforts of Mission Possible, because we do think that's a really wonderful program. I've been in ongoing conversations, as Commissioner Starkey can attest, regarding SB 1383, trying to work with county staff and make the next steps with respect to that. And towards that end, I've been in conversation with a local group of permaculture enthusiasts, and they're looking at potentially applying for a USDA grant, and that would essentially expand the capacities of processing and promoting composting here in Delaware County. And because there is a limited time to work on that, and we would likely need to seek approval for submitting that next month, I thought I would include what information we had to date. And so attached to the director's report is a bullet list of concepts they're working on developing for that grant program. But because it specifically is eligible for tribes and local governments, it would be needed to be submitted on behalf of this agency in order for it to even be considered. So that's something that we'll likely discuss next month. Looking at other items that otherwise are not appearing on the agenda, statewide commission on recycling markets and curbside recycling is in the final throes of finishing our report that was due in July. And if you follow the link that's in the director's report, you'll find your way to that report. It has been a considerable effort, but it's been one of the highlights of my career to work with that group and to offer policies. So we have 29 policy recommendations, some of which have already been taken up by the legislature, but many of which still need to work through. And these are all essentially proposals about how we can improve our existing recycling and organics recovery systems and how we can make those more effective and efficient. And again, I'd highlight that we do have a new employee, Warren Bailey. Welcome to the staff. Any questions at this point, or shall I move on to the finance?
Anyone have any questions for Director Ward?
Okay.
All right.
Financials, we've got 1.4 million in the bank plus 198,000 for the last month's rent, so to speak. So things are continuing their upward trajectory, which we are happy about. You look at claims approved by director. Once again, you'll see, as always, our largest payment goes to Hambro WSG for their good services at the Delaware County Transfer Station. Particularly during these last few months of the fiscal year, I feel like I need to point out that, for example, in May, the entire expenditures of the agency were $262,000. Of that, nearly $220,000 went to Hambro WSG. So it's about 2/3 of our monthly budget. And the reason why I highlight that is that we tend to make very large budget transfers at the end of the fiscal year. And the reason is because we need to adjust the transfer operations payments, and those are such a large proportion of our payments. So those tend to be large at the end of the year. So it is, I know it's large, and that always raises concerns, but it's a normal part of our process, and we always charge fees that are adequate to make sure our contractors. Continuing on the financial reports, again, the last month was a little bit down from what we had expected in the past, but still things are up for the summer months. So looking at this point in time, looking at the authority revenue report, at this point in time, the authority service fees are $111,800 above budget, and the franchise fees are $19,367 above budget. So both those income lines are above budget, and that helps us make those last budget transfers. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that concludes the director.
Any questions on the finances for Director Ward?
Okay.
All right, very good. Then we will receive and file our financials as well as the director's report, and we will move on into our general solid waste authority matters. We don't have anything on 3, 4, and 5. And we've already discussed as a part of 1.2 Mission Possibles. Unless there's something else, Director Ward, that you want to mention.
Let me add just something, just so the board understands how we treat these community cleanup efforts. Essentially, as you know, we've been supporting Mission Possible and their good efforts, but this, as the good article by Jessica Saynar, as attached to the report, indicates, this was a larger effort, and the city got engaged, and so we're taking it one step at a time. But we're always trying to look at what resources can we use now and support what's going on now. And so Mission Possible is doing ongoing cleanups to the extent that it was possible to start moving materials using the Mission Possible resources. We wanted to do that, and then we wanted to ask for the allocation of the dumpsters so that as we're able to use city resources and stuff, those were ready to go. But to the extent people are willing and ready to do cleanups, we want to be there to support those good efforts. And we want to do that as promptly and as timely as we can, and not be anything that's delaying the process. So I think we've followed through with that on the cemetery project, but it continues to evolve and seems to, at this point, be in the largely planning stage.
Mr. Inscore,
Yes.
this is Jeremy with Recology. I wanted to give the board a quick update. We have placed the order for the 60 street side containers. So we signed the final paperwork and administered a PO here the other day for just a little over $163,000. So those are on order and should be in here, 7 to 8 weeks out. So I just wanted to give an update on the progress of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I did have one other thing on the director's report, and which is California's open. Do you want to meet in person next month?
The only concern I have about meeting in person is that Cal OSHA requirements are still in effect. So, I mean, we certainly can meet in person, but we are going to have to be masked just because especially if we use the Board of Supervisors chambers. I believe, at least as of today, they're still under the guidelines of Cal OSHA. So,
Is the latest, I know Cal OSHA has gone back and forth multiple times, is the latest date that they have now July 31st? Is that the last, I mean, for the latest guidance that they have, that what they've approved is now effective through July 31st, and that they will reevaluate it again?
you know, I don't know the actual date. I know that they met on June 17th and they became more in line a little bit with the reopening, but it wasn't 100%. And then there's back to the whole thing that if you're unvaccinated, then everybody in the room needs to wear the mask. And I just think that gets into a real divisive scenario. So I mean, I'm more than willing to meet in person, but just know that we're going to have to probably follow those guidelines.
I think that given that information, I think we should target August as being, you know, maybe that time frame, and hopefully by that time there'll be some clearer guidance, and maybe we won't have to do that. Because I agree with you, Valerie. I don't want any more divisiveness than we've had for the last year plus, and we don't need that. But I appreciate you bringing that up. So Director Ward, unless others of the commission feel differently, I think we should plan for virtually next month and target August, hopefully, as being, we can get back to meeting together.
That's helpful. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. The audit is 6.2.
You've seen this. Nothing's changed since the draft, but since last you saw it, it had draft stamped all over it. It seems reasonable that you should get the final. So,
all right. So we
receive
have
it.
the final from Harshwell and Associates. Is there any questions or comments regarding the document?
Yes, on page 25 of the document, which is page 57 of our agenda packet, is the OPEB component. And there is a line of $110,061 for assumption changes. Can we discuss what that means? I mean, I understand that we have unfunded liability issues out there. I did not understand them to be OPEB. I understood them to be
PERS.
PERS
GASB
pension liabilities. So when I saw that, I was just wondering what, I mean, that's a pretty drastic change for that total OPEB liability.
Right.
So I was just wondering what that number represents. What is our assumption changes, and why did that come about?
In general, we have another contractor, McLeod and Associates, that does the actuarial projections for generating these numbers. And while I don't have that report in front of me, my recollection was that it had to do with presumptions about both the magnitude of medical expenses and the performance of the investment accounts that these funds were placed into. Those two things, essentially, the assumptions were a little optimistic, and so they adjusted those and our costs went up. And if you would like, I'd be happy to follow up with you regarding that other report and how those assumptions were changed, but that's where they're detailed. So it's work outside of what the auditor did. While it's included in this auditing report, it was actually not their work that produced that number.
I would appreciate that, Mr. Ward. And I'm sorry, Mr. Inscoer, I should have asked before, just butting in and asking the question.
Oh, no.
So I apologize for that. But yeah,
it's great that you're reading it in detail. Good job. Thank you.
I was just wondering if we had those. I mean, our unfunded pension liability numbers that the state has thrust upon all public agencies that have been pretty drastic is one thing. So I was just curious as to that assumption change for our OPEB liability as well, and if there was some drastic legislation that was going on in that regard as well. So I was just curious about that, and a little bit fearful that we're going to get stuck with another legislative mandate that was going to be very costly. Sorry.
No, and I agree with you about the concerns, Commissioner Short. The reality is OPEB is so much different than our pension liabilities, because the projections of what healthcare is going to cost, it's just everybody keeps adjusting this, and obviously I look for us to see another spike because of COVID. They will reassess this and what healthcare has cost the American public this last year. That's part of what these actuarials look at to talk about what would be the long-term cost associated with people who are no longer with the agency, who are provided some kind of health benefit. And the one credit that I will give to this agency is that we have been forward thinking in addressing our unfunded liabilities and making extra payments and doing things to try to mitigate these unexpected and yet very real assumption changes that get dropped on us. And I certainly credit Director Ward for his foresight in being able to encourage us to do that over the last couple of years. I think it's been a very wise management approach.
So I'll include that response if in the next director's report to try to give a little bit more detail as to the changes in those.
I think that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Be very good. Thank you, Ted.
All right. Any other questions regarding the annual financial report? Then this is a receive and file unless there is any specific challenges or questions to the document itself. Let's go ahead and go to 6.3, which is a discussion regarding Eco Hero and the school district.
So I showed you a video last time of the kind of outreach that Eco Hero has been doing in the classrooms, and since we are paying invoices from them, it seems like you should get periodic updates. Bottom line, since March, or since mid-March, they've made another 13 presentations, including Joe Hamilton, Pine Grove, Bess Maxwell, Redwood Elementary, Uncharted Shores, Smith River Elementary, Mountain Elementary, Castle Rock, and Mary Peacock. And some feedback they got from Mr. Farr's classroom was Shane did a great job with the presentation. They had lots of good information. The students enjoyed it as well. So generally seems to be a good outreach program, and I appreciate Kira doing the oversight, making sure that those programs using our California Redemption Value resources are continuing to promote recycling well. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but it's just a status report.
I'll just say that's excellent. They've been busy.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate this program. And this is a great example of the kind of contractor that really understands how their services can augment our staff. And they try to make it easy. They dovetail well, both with the requirements of the grant programs and making sure that we're incorporating local information so that the students are getting accurate information about what is recyclable here. And they're not just getting a generic program, even though it is.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. We're going to move on to item 6.4, discussion of possible action regarding a possible one-time donation to the Kamome Foundation. I'm going to recuse myself for this item and ask our Vice Chair Short to take this item. I will provide one piece of information. Number one, my recusal is because I am actually one of the officers of the newly organized nonprofit. I also need to provide you the information that while the nonprofit has been filed with the Secretary of State and also with the federal government for a federal tax ID number, those things have not been finalized. And so there is not a nonprofit officially organized that money can be given to within that structure. You could make a decision of what you may want to do, but it is not fully complete. And you just need to be aware of that so that, anyway. So with that, I'm going to turn off my sound and video, and I will turn it to Vice Chair Short for this discussion.
Thank you, Chair Inscore. And just noting that he is an officer of this 501c3, he still, in my opinion, my belief, still does not have a financial interest in this, just because he's an officer, but out of an abundance of caution and just keeping his integrity above board. I thank him for recusing himself for this. So the item is discussion and possible action regarding a possible one-time donation to the Kamome Foundation in the amount of $2,200 for the formation of a nonprofit to promote the sister city relationship between the city of Crescent City and Rikuzen Takeda, Japan. Is there any public comment on this item?
No.
Carrie, you see no public comment, and there was none written. With that, then I will come back to the authority commissioners and ask if they have any comments or concerns or questions.
Perhaps I could provide some introduction.
Certainly, Ted, go right ahead.
So I was observing in, again, another excellent article from Jessica Steinar, was that the Kamome Foundation had approached the City Council and Board of Supervisors and looking for support. And as we are a joint powers authority of the City of Crescent City and the County of Del Norte, and I've always known that the Kamome specifically has a solid waste angle. And if we're going to educate people about the concerns about ocean litter and the concerns about tsunamis, to me, there's absolutely a very compatible relationship between the interests of the messages the Solid Waste Authority would like to promote and the messages of friendship and sister city relationship that the Kamome Foundation would like to support. So I drafted this in thoughts that perhaps this might be something the commissioners would want to do. But because we're a public agency, we want to be very cautious. We don't want to just give away public funds unless there's absolutely a defined community benefit towards those efforts. And so staff have presented the following findings and possible action for the board to take. The findings would be that as a joint powers authority of the City of Crescent City and the County of Del Norte, responsible for implementation and oversight of programs addressing solid waste, recycling, composting, and household hazardous waste, the Solid Waste Authority actively supports outreach efforts with potential to educate regarding the impacts associated with solid waste, including tsunami debris. That the Sister City Partnership established between under Crescent City Resolution 2016-47 between the City of Crescent City and Rikuzen Takeda, Japan, followed the 2013 arrival of Kamome, a 20-foot-long fishing vessel swept away in the 2011 tsunami from Takata High School from the Tohoku earthquake. The story of the Kamome provides a unique and potent educational opportunity about tsunamis and ocean debris, and that the Solid Waste Authority intends to support cultural exchanges between Raikuzen, Takata, Japan, and Del Norte County and leverage those opportunities to learn from each other and to educate about solid waste recycling and composting programs and how these relate to ocean debris in our coastal communities. And then that would be followed by the action. Therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority authorizes a one-time donation in the amount of $2,200 as a special department expense for professional services and related expenses to establish the Kamome Foundation as a nonprofit dedicated to furthering cultural exchanges between Del Norte County and Raikuzen, Takata, Japan, with the request that representatives of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority be consulted regarding how the Kamome story can help raise awareness about the programs to control and reduce ocean debris.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. As the acting chair, I believe it is my place to not make any motions or comments unless it would have to do with a breaking a tie during a deliberation or polling of a vote for. So with that, I am going to refrain from speaking on this and open it up to the other commissioners if they have any comments about this item.
Okay. I have some comments.
Mr. Greeno, thank you.
While I support the sister city relationship, and I think that Mr. Ward has made a compelling argument about supporting this relationship through some funds from the Solid Waste Management Authority. I'm a little, I kind of think that this is putting the cart before the horse in that it doesn't sound like they have, say, all of their paperwork in line, and it doesn't sound like they have a place for these funds to go, even a bank account, should I say, that is dedicated to that 501c3 at this time. And so I'm a little concerned about that. And I kind of feel that at this point, we should probably table this item until those things come to fruition. And we can make sure this is all above board. That would be my opinion on this.
Thank you, Mr. Greeno.
And if I
Mr.
could,
Tompkins or Ms. Starkey, go ahead.
I'm opposed to this. I'm opposed to using funds that should be collected for our solid waste to go toward a foundation like Jason has mentioned. It's not even completely established yet. We just raised the rates, and I just cannot in good conscience now use some of that money to go towards a foundation that has it doesn't have at least the bylaws that we can look at. It doesn't have a budget that we can look at. It doesn't have a purpose or a mission statement that we can see. And so I'm opposed to it.
Thank you, Ms. Starkey. Mr. Tompkins, do you have any comments?
Could I, real quick, could somebody explain to me what line item of the solid waste budget this would come from?
Mr. Ward, would you have an answer
That would
for
be a
that?
special department expense, which is essentially the line item that it means that you're using it for something very related to the agency that would not occur to other agencies.
So this is this would be money that's in the budget for this kind of thing and would not be used for anything else.
That's correct, and it is a budgeted amount. We have the amount in the budget without further budget transfers.
I tend to agree with Jason that maybe we should table this and let them come back when they do have their ducks lined up. And at that point, when their ducks are lined up, I think I'm in favor of it. I think the amount they're asking for is, the only other question I would have is, show me exactly what you intend to use this money for within the scope of your mission. bearing in mind that a 501c3, you know, has to look for money. I mean, to exist, they have to get funded, and that's what they're doing here, is looking for ways to get funded. And what they're asking for, it sounds like to me would be a good thing. I feel like, though, I would like to see a more clear, I'm with Jason and somewhat with Commissioner Starkey, that let's get a little bit more clear on this.
All right. With that, I'm going to move that we table this item until such a time as they can come up with the paperwork for a 501c3 and prove that they have a bank account where we can deposit these funds that's dedicated to that purpose.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to table the item.
I would
Do we have a
second that.
second? And we have a second. Any other discussion? Is there, Carrie, did I ask for public comment on this item already?
Yes, you
I
did.
did. I
You
did.
didn't ask for
I
public
always,
comment on the motion, though.
yeah, I don't believe I needed public comment on the motion itself, but on the item, on the action item. I always forget public comment, and I wanted to make sure that I wanted to definitely include that. So we have a motion and a second on the table. And at this time, Kara, would you pull the vote?
Commissioner Starkey,
No,
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
No.
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes,
Well, sounds like it fails.
And with that, I believe the motion fails.
I'm sorry, can I just have a little bit of clarification? Are we voting no to table the item?
I did, and Commissioner Starkey voted no to tabling the item. Mr. Tompkins and Mr. Greeno voted yes to tabling the item. So with that, the motion to table fails.
Okay, thank you.
And before we invite Mr. Inscore back, is there any other motions that the commission would entertain prior to moving on from this item?
can I make a motion that we deny this request completely? So that,
You can make that motion.
okay, then I will motion that we deny a one-time donation to the Camoni Foundation in the amount of $2,200 for the formation of a nonprofit to promote the sister city relationship.
Do we have a second to that? In that case, I will second that motion. Is there, let's see, we did public comment. So Kara, would you pull the vote for the?
So can we
alternate
discuss
motion?
this real quick?
Certainly,
Mr.
certainly,
Short?
Jason.
Your opinion to deny this, what is your opinion?
While I am certainly in favor of the sister city relationship, and I've made that pretty public all across the board, I do not believe that the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority is the place to be pulling any public funds out of for this purpose. We discussed this at the Board of Supervisors just this morning, and the board has budgeted a place for the promotion of the sister city relationship. And that was the ask from the Camoni Foundation president this morning. Personally, I think that the county having budgeted that, it could be a decent and above board place to give the Camoni Foundation a great kickstart. I think the Kamomi Foundation could use that. I think it is a very, very worthwhile foundation. Um, and I think it's a necessary step. I think making or creating a nonprofit to go forward with this this sister city relationship is the way that this should go. I think the county has budgeted money to go forward with that idea. Um, I do not share that sentiment in this realm. I I don't think that every aspect, every JPA, every county entity needs to chime in with this sister city relationship um, support or donation. I just personally can't see where the management authority um, politically, realistically um, has the, how am I supposed to say, has the correct position to be donating public funds to this um, new nonprofit. And as um, Commissioner Starkey has stated, and you, Jason, that we have not seen their bylaws. We don't know what their budget is. We don't know what their plan is. While I know Bill Steven personally, I I think he's a very stand up and above board. I have every bit of respect for Bill Steven as the president of the Kamomi Foundation and the other board members as well. I highly respect them. And I would not suspect that anything was less than completely above board. Um, I just want to be sure and have everything that is related to this new foundation to be um, completely without question, with having the utmost in integrity. And if that means that there would bring question as to why in the world is the Solid Waste Management Authority donating public funds to this, I just question the wisdom as to if we were to do that. I question that as a wise move. So
Okay.
that's just kind of my thoughts as to why I think this is not something that the management authority should get into.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner Short. Unfortunately, I did not attend the meeting, the supervisor meeting. So I was unaware that the county was committed to this financially. Can you tell me approximately what kind of financial commitment they've made, or have they made a commitment to this foundation, or is it just what's going on there?
There was an ask for the budgeted amount, and help me, Ms. Starkey, $2,291.
There's $2,100 and some change. It was what was left over of the $2,500 that was budgeted to go toward the Kimoni travel and training with the sister city.
Thank you.
We're
Thank you
asking
very
for
much.
that
So,
remaining. Yeah.
so it is a comparable amount to what we're talking about here. It was budgeted and unspent monies that was asked for, which I agree is arguably an amount of money that should go to this foundation to promote this. There was just some questions as to, their their plan of spending, the question of should we spend public funds on this. The argument could be made, yes, we should, because it's already been budgeted. But the other argument could be made that, yes, it was budgeted, but it wasn't spent. So should it go back to the taxpayers or back into the budgets, or back into the county budget, as, you know, an unspent budgeted item? So there's arguments both ways, but it failed this morning, Mr. Tompkins. Just to be clear, that was the ask, was just nothing more than just the budgeted amount of money that was unspent during the last fiscal year.
Yeah, and if I could just add too, is I don't feel like maybe I explained myself very well because I just have done this earlier today. So I do apologize if I didn't provide enough of the reasons as to why I'm opposed to it. I just cannot in good conscience use taxpayer money for something when we just raised people's rates. We just asked them on the county side for a 1% sales tax increase. And I understand it's a very small ask, but we are, like I said earlier today, we are a nickel and dime budget, and we have to save our nickels and our dimes. And if we have any extra money to be giving to nonprofits, for nonprofits that are just beginning, even not even established, that can provide some sort of validation or documentation as to how they benefit our community as a whole, I think that we're not being very good managers of the taxpayers' money. So that's just where I'm coming from. And I do apologize. I don't feel like I explained that very well because I just explained it earlier, and that wasn't my intention, not to be very clear.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
thank you both for explaining your position, and I understand where you're coming from. And I also understand that we don't have any documentation stating how these funds are going to further the management authority's purpose. And we really shouldn't be spending money on things that don't further the management authority's goals and purpose. So it actually makes sense to deny this at this time, because we don't know how the funds are going to be spent, just on that one thing, on that one point. So, all right.
Vice Chair Short, if I might point out something that it seems to have come up in the last couple votes, because Chair Inscore has recused himself. In order for any vote of this authority to be effective, it needs to include both a city and a county vote, as well as a majority of 3.
So Jason is the city.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that back up. It is something that does relatively disappear. Often we just count the numbers, and we want to make sure that we have a vote from both sides. Thank you, Ted, for that.
Although I will say at the end of what I just said, I do believe there is a compelling public interest for the people of the city of Crescent City, as well as the county, to support the sister city relationship with Rakuza Takata. I still support this relationship.
I absolutely do too. And as I told Mr. Stevens this morning, is that I will personally write him a check. I will chair a fundraiser for him. And I've been very successful with my fundraising efforts. You know, I helped make CASA $50,000. I helped Rowdy Creek earn $50,000. I'm certainly willing to spend my personal time doing that. Just can't use the taxpayers' money.
All right.
I agree. And as I said before, I am totally in support of the Kamome Foundation. I totally agree with organizing the nonprofit, taking it out of the responsibility of the city and the county to go forward with this idea of the sister city relationship. I think it's very appropriate. But I just cannot see that it would be appropriate to use the funds from the Delaware Solid Waste Management Authority to do so. That is the reason I gave the second to Ms. Starkey's motion. And on this motion, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but is there any public comment to this current motion?
I thought we
Mr. Tompkins.
Before we go to public, real quick, I wanna just ask you and Commissioner Starkey, would you be willing to re-entertain this request if they could come back with something clearer and more, that was more compelling to, to, to us? Would you be willing to entertain another request down the road?
I'm gonna have to say that I'm gonna want a few years of down the road, because I'm gonna want to see, I know, I'm sorry, but I'm being very strict about this, but it's not something that just, when we consider what we want to do for community and the larger picture, we have to look at what's gonna benefit the community as a whole. And so if this does, and the Camoni Foundation has, or the Sister City Relationship has done a wonderful job. I still don't think it should be taxpayer money. But if they come back to us and they can prove, like CASA proves, that by being involved in children, foster kids' lives, that they are having an extra advocate, that somebody is helping them out, then I certainly will entertain that and listen to that. But that's going to be a while for them to come back and to us be able to establish that 27 kids went to Japan and they learned this, and 27 kids started interest in recycling with ocean debris from tsunamis, so that it would be a while down the road for me to want to entertain it again.
A little confused about your saying, on the one hand, that taxpayers' money shouldn't be involved. On the other hand, the county apparently has put money into this program or into this.
Oh, not the Camoni Foundation. They had put money into the Sister City travel and training budget, but not in this particular
I see.
foundation.
All
Yes.
right, and so the Camoni Foundation was asking for what hadn't been spent in that budget. Okay, I get it now. Thank you.
In an answer, in my opinion, unless you could come up with a substitute motion, I still cannot see where it would be appropriate for the Delaware Solid Waste Management Authority to donate to, public funds into the Camoni Foundation. I think, well, Martha's here. I'm sure she could guide us as to whether it was politically or legally appropriate for us to do that. I'm not asking you to do that right now, Martha, but I'm just saying that in answer to your question, Mike, I don't see where the motion could be I'm sorry, restated to where it would change my mind in that effect. So, Kira, if there is any public comment out there, would you allow them to speak at this time?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay, without any public comment, we do have a motion and a
I
second
do
on
see
the
a
floor.
hand raised. I'm sorry. I see Braden Harris's hand raised.
Oh.
Sorry, I just saw that as well. Hang on just one moment.
I did not see that on my screen. So if you would allow him to make a comment, thank you.
Braden, go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, this is Jeff Harris. Apparently I have my son's name on my screen.
All right, you're not allowed to speak then, Jeff.
Thanks, Darren. Hey, you know what? I actually want to really thank all of you for this. It just came to my attention that this was the ask, and I think that Bill Stephen, Blake Inscore, Chris Howard, and I have met. We've talked about this, and our goal was actually to do exactly what Valerie said: remove the responsibility for this exchange from the governmental realm and bring it back to the nonprofit and have it be funded by donations, have it be funded by other foundations who give to these kinds of things. And I truly, truly appreciate the fiduciary responsibility that Solid Waste has shown by saying these funds need to go to a service that Solid Waste is providing. At this point, I'm going to tell you, I support the decision that's being made for a variety of reasons. And at some point in the future, again, as Valerie stated, if it's appropriate to come back and to talk about the benefit of solid waste partnering in some way or form to provide an educational or a cross-cultural opportunity, then I'm all for that. And we'll talk about the appropriateness at that point in time. But I do appreciate your willingness to discuss it, but I also appreciate and support this particular decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Just kind of want to point out that we haven't actually ruled on that decision yet. There's been a motion and a second on the table. And with the end of his comment, I believe there's, on my screen, I see nobody else. Kara, do you see anybody else that's wishing to comment?
No, neither in email or on our attendees.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny. Let's see, Ms. Starkey, if you could maybe restate your motion to deny the payment.
You got to remember, I'm over 50 and my short-term memory is going, but I would like to make a motion that we deny the request for a one-time donation to the Kimoni Foundation in the amount of $2,200 for the formation of a nonprofit to promote their sister city relationship.
And I have seconded that motion. So Kara, if you would poll that vote, please.
Commissioner Starkey,
Yes.
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompkins.
Yes,
With that, the motion is carried to deny that payment. With that, we're going to move on to item number 6.5. Thank you, Mr. Enscore, for listening in and coming back and taking over as chair.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the discussion. I just want to make one clarification on the discussion that you just made. The Kimoni Foundation did not request a donation from the Solid Waste Management Authority. That started with the Solid Waste Management Authority staff. The Kimoni Foundation did not actually make that request. And I think it's important for you to know that. And as a founding board member, I will simply say we do have bylaws. We do have a mission statement, and we are learning as we go. So I would ask you to be patient with all of us as we try to find a way to move forward. And I appreciate everything that you said, and by and large agree with everything that you have said. And as a person who has probably taken as many shots about the public fund component to this, I'm not sure that there's anybody that has been, I have more FPPC violations filed against me because of this than anybody else. I appreciate everything you've said. I really do. And Mr. Ward, I will tell you as a founding member of the Kimoni Foundation, we absolutely want to look for ways to engage with the Solid Waste Management Authority from an educational standpoint. And if down the road, a couple of years from now, we discover that there is a tangible way to connect these two, then the Kimoni Foundation will come itself and make that request. So, but I do appreciate your consideration, Director Ward, and I think you are forward thinking. You just may be a little bit too forward. So, anyway, thank you, everyone. We have one last open session, two more items, I'm sorry. We have the public hearing for our budget, which is 6.5, and then the item that we added regarding SB 619, which will be 6.6. But let's go ahead and open up the public hearing for the Solid Waste Management Authority budget for 21-22. Director Ward.
Yeah, so thank you for opening the public hearing. So we'd be happy to hear from the public if there is anybody. No?
Okay. I don't see any.
Okay. So in general, in overview, this is the third time we have to go through several hoops to pass our budget. Our budget is adopted prior to the county's regular budget process. So we adopt a preliminary budget and then present that to the city and the county, trying to receive comments and then come back. We've jumped through those hoops. We've announced that we would have a public hearing today, and this is the final step before adopting the budget. Nothing has changed since it was first presented to you. So it is a balanced budget, and it is looking at anticipating greater income in the coming year, as that is the projections from the last few years running. But it remains a conservative budget in that we make very modest adjustments to our anticipated income and try to make sure our spending lines are all below that. So balanced budget, projecting an increase in income. In overview, this agency was formed in the red, in that we have the liabilities associated with the Crescent City landfill, as well as the construction expenses for the Delaware County Transfer Station. Those liabilities exceed the revenues and the amounts of resources we have in the bank, and we are slowly digging ourselves out of that hole. And hopefully, in the next year or so, we'll actually be in the black, but we are not yet there.
All right, thank you, Director Ward. Any questions regarding the budget? We've had opportunities to see it multiple times. Even though, so I did have to ask Director Ward again today. I guess I also am past 50, Val, just a little. We do have budgeted, and it's on the third page of the budget. I was specifically concerned about the ongoing investigation of the Northern transfer station, and because it's not listed as that, it's under property, under fixed assets, 4610. So included in that $353,000 is the continued work in trying to move towards the possibility of a Northern County transfer station. So, which I think is a really important component to continue to work on. So, if any of you were wondering if that was in the budget, it is. I had to ask again, even though I probably asked now 3 times. So I apologize, Director Ward. I will remember now. I promise. Or not. Okay, any other questions about the budget? Okay, I'm gonna, if we don't have any public comment, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and I'll bring it to the commission for consideration of approval.
I move that we adopt the 2021-2022 budget for the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second.
I have a motion and a second. Kira, would you please poll the vote?
Commissioner Short,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey,
Yes.
Commissioner Greeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompkins,
Yes,
Chair and Score.
Yes. Very good. Our last item is the urgency item that we added regarding SB 619. SB 619, which is in the Natural Resources Committee tomorrow. It's already been through the Senate floor, and it went 35-0, but it's still got to go through the Assembly. The concern is at 619, what it does is it provides an extra year and keeps Cal Recycle from being able to start implementing fines against municipalities that have not implemented all of SB 1383, which I think that we certainly support that concept. We're not going to be able to weigh in. A letter is not going to do anything for tomorrow. I wish that we had gotten notice about this sooner. We could weigh in actually in the committee hearing. We have a process by which we can call in and get in the queue and simply say, hey, I'm in favor of that. What I would like to ask the board to do is to at least acknowledge that this is consistent with our legislative platform, and that if an opportunity presents itself before our next meeting, that if it moves out of committee and heads towards the assembly, that we can in fact send a letter of support. That's my consideration and why I wanted it on here. So I don't know that that will happen before our next meeting, but it very well could.
Well, in the least, we'd need to send Assemblyman Wood
Yeah.
a support letter.
Yeah, and he's on the Natural Resources Committee. So he's going to hear this in committee tomorrow before it gets to the assembly. I think it's appropriate for us to send him a letter. But I wanted the board to talk about it. So.
No, I think that this makes a lot of sense. We've had our struggles with 1383 for a long time, and I think our struggles are just starting,
Yeah, I
unfortunately.
agree.
If it gives us a little extra time, then yeah, I'm for it.
Okay. Others?
Well, and also I'm sorry, I didn't really read it in detail, but in my quick perusal of it, I mean, it really kind of talks about how the pandemic really delayed so much. And while wasn't finalized until November of 2020, now we're got to hit the ground running. And so, I mean, I've been talking with Director Ward about this. We've got to get a few steps taken. It's on the county side. I understand that and I'm going to start pushing to ensure that those things get done. He has done a very good job putting the bug in everybody's ear. It just, things aren't happening. So we've got to make sure we start getting this pushed through. Anytime, like Director Greeno stated, or Commissioner Greeno, I'm so sorry, I forget what everybody is. But any extra time that we have is going to be beneficial to us, but we for sure need to get in our exemption. So, I mean, we got to start moving some things. So I do agree with supporting this.
Okay. Commissioner Short, Mr. Tompkins, I see nods, so.
Yes, I am just in support of getting this. I mean, I'm in support of supporting a repeal of 1383, but
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
with what we have to deal with, yes, baby steps, and yes, let's support this. You know, not levying fines against you know, especially our small county with the heavy lift that California has mandated upon us. Yes, I definitely am in favor of issuing this letter of support.
Okay, then with consensus of the board, I will work with Director Ward, maybe use the sample that the League of Cities provided, and I would be happy to affix my signature to a support letter. And then also to, if there's other opportunities between now and our next meeting, to follow up with that with others to do the same. So. Do I have just consensus just for visual and I can see everybody? All right, very good. Director Ward, let me know how I can be helpful to do that.
I will reconfigure the letter sample that you provided for me, and we'll have something for your signature and submittal tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the board taking this up. Okay, we are at the end of our open session items. We are going to be going into closed session. You received a separate Zoom link. Some of us have already been there twice. So we'll go back there again. This meeting will be held open. I don't think we anticipate action coming out of closed session, but if there are, it would simply be to report what that is. And so I would certainly be willing to come back with staff or council back to this meeting, but the rest of you won't necessarily have to do that just to close out. So with that, this meeting will need to leave this meeting so we can get into closed session, and I will see you all there.
Mr. Inscore, you want to just say 5:30?
5:30.
For meet back time.
For
Give
now.
everybody a little bit of a break.
You need 10 minutes?
He has to go hug those grandkids.
All right, we will be in closed session promptly at 5:30 then. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. See you in a bit.
Okay.
Hey, hey. So we're reconvening in open session, having finished the closed session. It's now 5:44, and there is no reportable action to announce. And I was anticipating Chair Inscore would be here to gavel us out.
Not quite yet.
Thanks for hanging in there, Andrew, even
Hang on.
if we're just somewhere on the screen in the back of your office.
No worries.
I'm just going to give them a second to come in if you don't mind. Thank you, Andrew.
No problem.
Blake joined the closed session again.
There's some kind of Murphy's Law involved here.
Oh my goodness.
There's got to be Zoom corollaries for Murphy's Laws, right?
Absolutely. How did you jump back into this meeting, Martha? Did you just go through the website link or did you? I can't hear you though.
It's that Murphy's Law again.
Yeah.
I just did the website link because I think when Ted sent out the agenda, I think you mentioned that we needed to use the website link.
And there's Chair Inscore.
Yeah. Well, I was just sitting there in la la land or something. I don't know. Just all of a sudden then it spins and a circle comes up and here we are. Okay, well, we're going to, we come out of closed session. We have nothing to report and we will adjourn our meeting until our next specially session meeting, which will be July 13th at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you all.
For all the good work today. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
All
Back
right.
at you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you next month.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks. Good job,
No problem.
Kira.
See you tomorrow.
Yep. See you tomorrow. Juggle, juggle.